You and I were at the book signing the other night, and someone came up with a copy of the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, right? A fantastic book. I mean, there's so much wisdom in that book, right? And there's nothing about stoning a girl to death if she's not a virgin on her wedding day. Now, we all recognize that Marcus Aurelius was a human being who wrote this book, and that provenance is no barrier to taking the book deadly seriously. It's an incredibly useful book, and Stoicism could be the, quote, religion or the guiding philosophy of the West. It would be a much better one than Judaism or Christianity, and have virtually none of the downside. And so that's my point, that we're in this perverse circumstance of being held hostage by certain products of literature, and we need to break the spell. And if we're finding it this hard to break, what do we think is going to happen in the Middle East or in sub-Saharan Africa? I mean, the moral progress we need to engineer is a common humanity coming together across shared values.
Those are perfectly credible arguments, but the weakness in the argument, I think, is the one that we started to talk about earlier, which is that when you talked with Dave Rubin a while back, and Michael Shermer said the same thing recently, he basically said that atheism is a doctrine of negation. That's what you said with Rubin, is that there isn't a positive ethos in atheism. All it says is that there's nothing personified. There's nothing personified transcendent. It's something like that. There is no God, and so the problem with the atheistic perspective,
it's not even the assertion that there is no God. It's just that it's a failure to be convinced by any of the gods on offer. It's just like not believing in Zeus.
Fine, and it's not like it's a weak. It's not like it's a weak argument. I mean, I'm perfectly aware that making a deistic case or a case for religion in the face of the claims of the rationalist atheists is perhaps, well, it's a very, very difficult thing to manage. But it is also the case that, and this is where I think we differ with regards to what happened, say, in the Soviet Union and perhaps to also in Nazi Germany, is that when your doctrine demolishes the let's call it the literary or fictional substructure and leaves nothing behind, an ethos needs to be provided, because something will rush in to fill the void. And it's certainly the case, and this is what Nietzsche warned about, even though he was a strident anti-Christian, and it's also what Dostoevsky foresaw. He said, if we knock out the logos from the substructure of Western society, Nietzsche believed that it was Christianity's emphasis on truth that destroyed Christianity, which was an extremely interesting criticism, that Christianity had elevated to truth to such a degree that it actually resulted in the demolition of its own dogmatic substructure. But be that as it may, Nietzsche's prognostication was that if we allowed God to die, and perhaps there were reasons for that the consequence would be that we would be awash in both nihilism and totalitarian bloodshed, and that is what happened in the 20th century. And
there's another aspect to that, which is that you may try to knock out the whole thing and take out some of the substructure, but not the whole thing. That's what Nietzsche also shows, that his prediction, and I think it's blindingly obviously true, that you might, in this post-Christian era, have a remnant of Christianity such as guilt, overbearing guilt, and no means of alleviation or redemption.
Right, which is actually part of the problem of Protestantism, by the way, right. Because it's, and there are other things too that seem to be fundamental religious issues that secularists, I think, have a difficult time accounting for. It's like, so you actually have to grapple seriously with the problem that a doctrine that's essentially one of negation doesn't offer a positive ethos. And you are doing that, to be perfectly fair. You said that reading a Nature paper about the necessity of calculating your ethic across multiple timeframes and multiple persons doesn't have the motive force that's going to drive you to act ethically in life. And I do believe that's true, but I think the fact that the rationalist ethos doesn't have motivational push is actually a fatal flaw.
They don't meet every week to read Marcus Aurelius. That's
Well,
a
yeah,
big problem.
yeah.
And they don't
but
write
that's- that-
music. Like, there's no music that goes along with it. There's no art that goes along with it. There's no architecture that goes along with it. Like, and I
but
don't
to be-
know
to be
why
fair to-
exactly.
But to be fair to the present, most music and most art and most architecture
Yes.
is no longer religious. I mean, that it has flown the perch provided by religion traditionally, and most of what we care about in increasingly cosmopolitan and secular societies is not tied to religion in any direct way. And there are even whole religions like Judaism where you have to look long and hard to find anyone who believes much of anything that is religious. I have literally sat on stage debating what I thought was a religious rabbi who was a conservative rabbi, and when I said something that assumed that he believed in a God who could hear prayers, he threw up his hands and he said, "What makes you think I believe in a God who can hear prayers?" And I was just, I practically lost the debate just in my astonishment. It's like, what does it mean to be a conservative rabbi in this case? There are religions that have made that transition to an increasingly attenuated commitment to the truth of the doctrine, and there are religions who haven't moved an inch, right? And but I think we have to acknowledge that this movement in this direction is progress, because what it actually is at bottom is increasing sensitivity to the difference between having good reasons and bad reasons for what you believe, right? And the fact that this book has been around forever is not a good reason. The fact that Mommy told me so.
It's not a terrible reason, though, because the fact that something has lasted for that length of time at least makes the fact that it's lasted a mystery. And you can't just attribute that to casual politicking or economic circumstances. There's something. Look, the least that you can say about many of the biblical stories is that they're incredibly memorable. And that means that in some sense they're adapted to the memory structures of our minds.
So is the mythology of ancient Greece. It's incredibly memorable.
But I don't
and
disagree with that.
all those gods are dead. The stories still can be useful,
yeah,
but the
their
gods are
spirit
dead.
lives on, let's say.
Yeah, but it lives on in a way that is benign. It lives on in a way where you learn about them in mythology class in school, right? You don't have a fear of Hades drummed into you as a child by your parents.